Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Making Sense of It All with Jesse Stakes. So my guest this week is David Lake. He's the president and founder of One Iron Golf. It's a company that specializes in single-length golf clubs, and for over the last 25 years, One Iron Golf has been one of the leaders in designing custom-built single-length woods, irons, and wedges. As you'll hear during the interview, David and his company's approach is that consistency simplifies swing mechanics and promotes better ball striking, thereby allowing you to have more fun playing the game of golf. So I hope you enjoy my interview with David Lake. Let's jump right into it. For you, what was it that made you, what inspires you to make single length golf clubs in the first place?
Well, this could be a PBS documentary, Jesse.
The abridged version.
Okay, let me give you a short version. Well, let's try to be short. I'm a retired CPA, and I owned a CPA firm in Dayton, Ohio, for many years. At the same time, I was also an avid hobbyist club builder. And I've been doing that for years, building clubs for all my friends and relatives, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Back around 1992, a friend of mine asked me, he said, Dave, why are there different lengths of irons within a set? And I sat there, and this is after studying everything that's available as far as golf club design, every treatise, every book, everything I'd studied. I couldn't answer that question. And I got to thinking, well, that is kind of stupid. So I started experimenting with it. And of course, I had all the equipment and so on and so forth, being an avid hobbyist. And I started coming up with Frankenstein sets of single length irons. And this went on for about 5 years. And I mean, it proved to me right off the bat, it was by far the best way to go. The varying lengths just didn't make sense. Well, then in 1997, I sold my interest in the CPA firm to a partner of mine. And I said, I'm just going to do this full time. And of course, in my experience as being an accountant and dealing with hundreds and hundreds of different businesses, I knew that I didn't want to open a retail store because, your audience is only maybe 10,000 people. I said, I want to go on the internet, which was in its infancy at the time. So I decided to go that way, which I could, appeal to millions of customers worldwide. Well, at the time, we were one of the first e-commerce sites on the internet. This is 1997 now. And there were no canned packages, anything like that. So I had to write my own website. I had to learn HTML code, write my own website, and so on and so forth. And basically, that's how the whole thing started, to get single length out there. Now, at the time, I wasn't aware that this had ever been done before.
Okay.
It turns out later on, I found out Tommy Armour tried it in 1989. They kept it for a few years and then dropped the line. I didn't know that. So I started out with design my own line of irons, woods, and everything. And basically, that's how I got into the business.
I see the value, and it makes a lot of sense. You're eliminating variables. You're keeping things very simple, especially for, to your point, like someone who's a hobbyist or someone who's not necessarily a professional golfer, but somebody who's doing, playing golf on the weekends. They don't have a tremendous amount of time to practice. To me, it makes a lot of sense. It's something like anytime you can eliminate variables from any equation, it simplifies it. So what are your thoughts? Like, why do you feel like people don't adopt this method on a more regular basis?
Well, because they've had it shoved down their throats since they started playing golf. Well, golf, clubs have to be varying lengths because that's what all the manufacturers provide. The fact of the matter is, like I said, when I first made my first Frankenstein set, I couldn't believe the difference. And of course, then as it evolved over the years, and I came up with my own designs and so on and so forth, the difference is astounding. And like you say, you eliminate variables. Instead of learning 10 different swings, 10 different ball positions, 10 different widths of your stance, 10 different weight shifts and all this, you got one. Now, anybody can get that one swing ingrained. And when it does become ingrained, it's very scary. The consistency it provides to the golfer is unbelievable. So, yeah, this benefits everybody. And if people would just open their eyes and try it, which we've had thousands and thousands of customers over there have tried it, and they all fell in love with it.
Well, one of my favorite parts of the story that kind of your origin story or your background story is the fact that you were a CPA. And I look at it, I think about golf in general. I mean, golf is enjoyed by millions of people across this planet. And I mean, when you look at how over the last 20, 30 years, how people really have, their handicaps have not improved. People have not gotten better at the game, doing it kind of the if you want to say the normal way, if you want to say that, which I hate to even call it that, but just that, kind of, you got a 45-inch driver in your hands or a 46-inch driver in a lot of cases today. You've got clubs that are, like you said, a variable length. You're trying to be good at a lot of different things. You've got a lot of different thoughts in your head. You've got a lot of things going on as far as what you're trying to do physically. And even just saying it right now creates some sort of anxiety in me thinking about it. And if you can simplify the game, make it easier for people to pick up something and go enjoy themselves on the weekend or go out there and play golf and not feel like this game is really hard, I feel like it would grow the game, and I feel like people would improve their skill set, would actually get better around the game.
Oh, and you're absolutely right. I mean, people will say, well, gee, wait a second. This pro here, he plays varying length irons. Jack Nicklaus played varying length. Look at what they did. But people forget, these guys practiced 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They were constantly practicing. Now, realistically, if you and I were to practice like that, we could go out there with a set of croquet mallets and shoot par. But the average person, they don't have that time, and I certainly don't have that time. And so the single length just makes sense. You learn one swing, and that's all there is to it. And anybody can learn one swing. It's kind of funny. If you have a minute here, Jesse,
absolutely,
I'm gonna relate a little story to you.
Please do.
I have a very good friend of mine whose grandfather was the head club designer for McGregor Golf. Now, this is when McGregor Golf was located in Dayton, Ohio. Well, anyway, his grandfather told him that back around the turn of the century, up until around the turn of the century, that all sets of irons were built to the same length. That all of them were. Now,
right.
These were hickory shafted and so on and so forth, and the only way you could get a set of clubs at the time was be a member of a country club somewhere, go in and have the pro make you a set. Now, this is very expensive. Obviously, number one, to join the country club, and number two, these were hickory shafts that had to be put on a lathe, fine-tuned, and all this, very expensive. But that is how they made all their clubs. And by the way, they custom fitted it based on their wrist to floor measurement, which is what we do today. Well, this kept on like this until about 1920, and that's when the steel shafts came on the market. Now, steel shafts, you could bring thousands and thousands of them a day very, very cheaply. And so now you'd have these stores offering sets of clubs to the general public because they were cheap. Anybody could afford them. Sears gets in on this, and some of the other big mail order companies of the day, they said, well, we can sell these through our catalog. And so they tried to. They had one big stumbling block. They couldn't custom fit them. And that's imperative. You get a set of single-length irons, they better fit you properly or you're wasting your time. Well, so anyway, a manufacturing decision was made. That, well, let's do this. Let's build each iron incrementally 1/2 inch longer than the iron preceding it. A half-inch increment from the pitching wedge all the way up to the 3-iron. That way, anybody orders these to a catalog, there's going to be at least a couple irons in there that come close to fitting the customer. And it was strictly a manufacturing decision. It had nothing to do with golf or golf performance. And that's how it's been done ever since. And it's never been questioned. And like I say, you can go through any golf club design book. I mean, there's tons of them out there, and I've gone through all of them. You will never find an explanation for different lengths within a set of irons. You'll find an explanation for everything else, bounce angle, lie angle, offset, everything. But you will never, ever find an explanation that makes any sense about having varying length irons. So that's my story. Now, like I say, I got it, well, third hand. He got it from his grandpa. I got it from him, but it just makes so much sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and it makes I mean, it's. I think sometimes when there is not a very good explanation, or when it's difficult to find a good explanation, you can usually point it back to money. You can usually find a reason why somebody could sell more of something, or they could they could make it easier for people to be fit for something because they could sell more of them, make more money doing it. So I've always found that that's typically, when you can't find the explanation, you can usually look at somebody's pocketbook and you can find it.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely correct.
So curious then, I mean, we're in 2024. I talk to a lot of people in my profession and also with doing my show. There's so much that comes up in 2024 about data and analytics, and you talk about so much information that's readily available to people. And then you have someone and I'll say like a Bryson Dechambeau that has at least brought single length irons to the forefront and said, that he's doing this professionally. And so it's, to your point of, other people looking on television and seeing what Jack Nicklaus played or seeing what other people played. But now you have somebody who is saying, hey, this can be done simpler, this can be done better. And he was been on the PGA Tour. He's now on Live Golf, but he's proving that this can be done. Have you seen a rise in adoption since the advent of Bryson DeChambeau being out in the public eye? Are you seeing people willing to try this and saying, you know what, this makes a lot of sense to me now? Why didn't I think about it before?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, it was January 2016. My wife and I were vacationing in Jamaica. And of course, I take my laptop, and every morning I get on, process orders, and so on and so forth. Well, January for the whole golf industry is a slow month. Well, all of a sudden, we were doing like $10,000 a day. Sales reps, what is? It blew me away. And then I did a little research and found I'd never even heard of Bryson DeChambeau. But then I did a little research and found that he had just won a U.S. Amateur, and he was walking around showing, "Oh, I'm playing single length iron." That was huge. So he made a definite impact on the game, or on the single length game.
No doubt, I'm sure he did. Well, and I think a lot of, to your point of what you said earlier, I think the one thing that club manufacturers and people say the reason for the variable length is they talk about distance. They talk about being able to generate speed, and they say that that the normal amateur can't generate enough speed to utilize a 5-iron or a 4-iron or a 3-iron if they don't have the additional length to create the club head speed to generate enough speed for that ball to get up high enough to stop on the green. What would you say to a person that says that?
Well, that's a fallacy, and that's something that you will hear all the time. You say, well, the longer club's going to produce more distance, and so on and so forth, and that's the reason, why there are varying lengths within the irons. That way a 5-iron's going to hit it farther than a 6-iron.
Right.
Well, that it is so ridiculous. You think about this. People say, well, number one, if you want to take the radius of a golf swing, it's from I'm right-handed. It's from your left shoulder all the way down to the sole of that golf club. That's the radius of your golf swing. Let's assume you've got a 7-iron. It's 35 inches long. And let's assume you got another 36 inches from your shoulder down to your wrist joint. And I say wrist joint because when you hold a club, that's where the butt end of the club's going to hit you right there in that wrist joint.
Right.
That's a true radius of your golf swing. Now, what are we talking here? Talking 71, 72 inches. That's a radius. Now, if I increase my club length by half an inch, which is the standard, incremental length increase in a standard set of irons, then I've increased my radial arm length by 1/140. Mm-hmm. Now, this is the width of your little fingernail, that half inch. Anybody who thinks that that's going to increase their swing speed is insane. There's no measurable increase. You can increase that by an inch. And what's true now, you got 1/71. Well, there's no measurable increase in swing speed. You can increase that by 2 inches. And when you increase it by 2 inches, it's 1 over 36. That's the increase in your radial arm length. I've got news. You're not going to, there's no measurable increase in swing speed at all. And that's the same way when you go down. Those people say, well, if I get it a 7-iron club length, oh, that's too long for my wedges. I'll hit them way too far. It's absolutely not true. Now, I'll tell you what is true. You probably will hit them farther. And the reason you hit them farther, if your whole set is identical, for club length, lie angle, so on and so forth, they're custom fitted. If they're identical, your chances of hitting the sweet spot on that club face go through the roof. And that is a huge producer of distance. If you miss that sweet spot, which, people say expanded sweet spot, there's no expanded sweet spot. Sweet spot on the club face is the size of a pinhead. You miss that a quarter of an inch either way, and you just lost 10 yards.
Right.
Well, a single length set where every time you hit an iron is the same, your percentage of hitting that sweet spot goes through the absolute roof. And besides that, say, for instance, your 3-iron. I was always considered a very good long iron player, before single length iron. Very good long iron. Well, what does that mean? That means that if I hit my 3-iron 10 times, I'd nail 5 of them. I probably have 3 maybe acceptable shots. They're certainly not great. I'd have 2 that were off in the pawpaw patch. However, if you get a single length set, you get so used to ingrained swing, your power, your confidence level goes through the roof with every club. So when you pick up that 3-iron now, your confidence level is through the roof, and you're going to tag that thing. And a realistic confidence level in a club is so huge. You'll get the average golfer out there, yeah, he's confident with his pitching wedge or his 8-iron, put a 3-iron in his hand. He's shaking. All he wants to do is make contact. He knows he's not going to do it 90% of the time. So the confidence level has a huge thing to do with it. Obviously, consistent solid ball contact on that sweet spot has a huge thing to do with it. So this whole argument about, well, the longer club length is going to give you extra distance, not true. Now, don't get me wrong. You take a driver that is a foot longer than your irons, yeah, there's going to be a difference there.
Sure.
But no, within a set of irons, the difference in club lengths within a set of irons, there's absolutely no measurable increase or decrease in swing speed throughout that set.
Are you seeing an adoption rate from the teaching pros, like from the people that are the golf professionals that are trying to grow the game at a club level or at a youth level? When you see these youth programs, is there anybody are you seeing people going towards single length, with younger golfers saying, okay, the technology in the heads is such now to where anything that you feel like you're even missing that doesn't exist anymore, the best thing to do is be consistent? Are you seeing an increased adoption rate there?
Not really. However, I've had hundreds of emails where somebody's going to take lessons, and the first thing you do is tell the pro, well, I play single length iron. Now, the pro will accept that because the pro, he's not going to turn anybody away from a golf lesson where he's making 50 to $100 an hour. So yeah, they can walk in there with a croquet mallet. He's going to give them a golf lesson. But no, is it a standard of teaching? Absolutely not. And just on a side note, I don't think anybody should sit there and study these YouTube videos on, golf instruction and stuff. People should ignore that because what happens is they start thinking too much. Hey, your golf swing lasts about 2.5 seconds. How are you going to possibly think about that? I mean, your body knows how to make that movement. You take a basketball, say, throw it way over there. Okay, you're going to grab it with 2 hands, turn around, throw it. Everything's going to be perfect, and you're never going to think about that movement. And that should be exactly the same with the golf swing. Your body already knows how to do it. Just get out of its way and let it do it. That's the way I look at it.
Well, I think that's very fair, and I think that there's a lot of people that would make the argument that athletes, when they get out of their own way, are much better than when they overthink things. So I think that's fair.
Can I add one more thing? Do we have time?
Please, absolutely.
Well, one of the questions you'd wanted to ask me was, where do you think golf's going in the future, and this and this and this. And you touched on it a little bit ago about the technology, advanced technology, and so forth. This is a real burr in my foot. And what that is every year the major golf companies will come out with their new and improved irons.
Right.
Now, there hasn't been a technological change in irons since Carson Solheim first came out with his original pings. And I will tell you right now, I would put those original pings up against everything Ping has offered ever since. They were an excellent design. There's no sense in changing. The thing was, the golf industry wanted to be like the car industry. Oh, this is a new, improved model, and so on and so forth. But in cars, it's true. But in golf clubs, it is not. It's a piece of metal on the end of a stick, and either you have a good design or you don't have a good design. And the poor guy that goes to one of these major companies and buys their new and improved, and they always give them some fancy name. But poor guy does. Well, does that mean the set he bought last year, the year before, is junk now? And these are the ones he should be paying? No, it's the biggest marketing hype scam there ever was. When I designed our one irons, I incorporated every playability aspect and every performance aspect into those. I couldn't have designed it any better, and I have not changed that design for 25 years. Even though we've come out with 3 other lines, other than my original, it is the exact same club head design with a deep undercut rear cavity, the mass right behind the sweet spot. I will never change that because I can't improve it. And I'm certainly not going to come out with a new one where it's all changed around and call it jailbreak technology or hollow body design or some garbage like that just to sell more golf clubs. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Well, no, I think I appreciate that, and I think that it's room, it leads to a different discussion too, because it's, what you just said as far as people selling the consumers on improved technology, whether, like you said, where you have some companies that are coming out with hollow bodied irons. And I think that's one of the biggest, most popular items that you're seeing these days. I don't know that there's a manufacturer that doesn't sell hollow bodied irons in today's game, as far as, as far as your major manufacturers. And you even have the rise of some, direct to consumer companies that are, they are essentially creating, and they almost look identical, a lot of these companies that are coming out as far as the actual club itself, but they're selling people on a hollow bodied iron that's foam filled, that's, it's got basically a, more of a muted sound, but they're selling them on the fact that it's got, some flexibility to the face, such as their woods, and they're going to get more distance out of their irons. Now, anybody who plays the game of golf knows that the name of the game with your irons isn't distance, it's precision. You've got to be able to hit it a certain distance every single time you pick up the iron. So, I think that definitely deserves to be discussed, because that is what's popular in the marketplace right now. That's where people are, if they're getting sold on snake oil, or if they're getting sold on, on a tonic, the tonic of the day for for golfers, then I think they deserve to know that.
No, you're absolutely right, Jesse. And next year, I do plan on coming out with a new set of irons, guaranteed to grow hair on your head in 30 days. What do you think?
You might sell a few of them. Fair enough. Well, like I said, David, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think that there's, it's funny to me. The golf industry is it's unique when it comes to sports. Whether if you play, to your point, if I played baseball, youth sports, it might be a little bit different, because in youth baseball they sell people on the bat that's going to hit the ball farther and things like that. But overall, you need a glove, you need a ball, you need a bat, and you can play the game of baseball.
Exactly.
And if the ball gets waterlogged, or if it gets wet, then you need another ball. But you can just go buy a ball. Yep. And then same with football. If you need pads, you need a football, you need shoes, you got some goalposts, you can play the game of football. Basketball is even simpler, because all you need is a basketball, and you need to go up to the park where there's a hoop and you can play basketball. But golf, not to belabor this, but golf is the only sport where it really has become almost more of an industry than a sport, because they're always trying to sell the golfer on buying the next best thing that's gonna make them hit the ball further. I can sell you a ball that will go further than the next ball. All of the equipment it's created an industry where the person who's playing that sport is now that they're the target audience, or they're the consumer rather than them being the active participant in the sport. And it's just very interesting how golf has just become, it almost begs it when people ask if it's an activity or a sport. I think at the consumer level or at the recreational level, it really is an activity, because it seems like the industry more looks at its customers as its only revenue source.
Well, you're absolutely right. And you brought up a good point. You play football, basketball, baseball. You have to think about what you're doing. You have to think
Nope.
about your movements or anything. Absolutely not. Golf is the only one. And that makes golf seem a lot more difficult than golf actually is. You're hitting the ball off the ground with a stick. What could be simpler? Your body knows it, but it's like they try to make it more complicated. And then, of course, the brands come out with things that make it less complicated. And it's like you say, it's an industry into itself. It's not even a sport or a thing. It's a sales activity.
I'm always a firm believer that if you want to see if something works, best thing in the world to do is to put it in your hands and see how you feel with it and see if it works for yourself. So that being said, if people are interested in your product, if they'd like to buy it, if they'd like to try it, where can they find you?
Okay, well, we are strictly an internet business. And the reason being, all of our sets are custom fitted to that individual. Therefore, we can't put them in golf stores and so on. And to be honest with you, I never wanted to do that anyway. But yeah, they can just go to our website, oneirongolf.com, either the numeral 1irongolf.com or just spell it out, oneirongolf.com. They can come to our website, read everything they ever need to know about single length play. By the way, we're the ones that coined that term, single length iron, 25 years ago. But
Yes, sir.
They can learn anything they want to, and they can order anything they want to. And of course, email us, whatever the case. We answer 100 emails every day, answer questions. That's how people can get a hold of us.
Well, and I can attest to that, because that's how we met. Is I shot you an email, and you were very kind enough to return my email very quickly. I think within the same day. So I can speak for you guys on that you guys have very quick customer service when it comes to answering people's questions.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, I might mention one thing. For 25 years, I'm the only one that answers emails. If somebody has a question, or if they call me up on the phone, they're going to be talking to me personally. I designed all our clubs. I'm an expert in that. And so I always looked at it this way. If I want to learn something about a product, I want to talk to the guy that knows that product in and out. I don't want to talk to some yin-yang or some secretary or somebody like. I want to know somebody who knows what they're talking about. And so I've always insisted that I answer every email that comes to us.
Very good. I think that's excellent. I wish more companies would do that.
Oh, I do too.
Well, David, I want to thank you very much. I think that I definitely learned something today. I think that this is something great for my audience. I got a lot of professionals that listen to me, and I think anything that can make the game simpler, more fun, easier to play on the weekends or with their customers and clients during the week, I think the better. So thank you very much.
I'll tell you what, I really enjoyed that conversation, and the more that I talk to people about the idea of simplifying the approach to the game of golf from an equipment perspective, the more validity that I believe that it holds, especially for folks who don't have a whole lot of time to put into it. For the folks that do something else for a living other than play golf, which is most of us, if not all of us, that are listening to this right now. I'm intrigued. Call me officially vested in this idea. I'm going to dive into this a little bit harder. I've got some ideas that I can't wait to share with you, and more to come here in the next few months. But for today, that's all I got. I'll catch you guys next time.